The following podcast is a presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Welcome to Vicious Whispers with Mark Tullius, your source for horror, sci-fi, suspense, and all things violent.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thank you so much for joining me today on Vicious Whispers with Mark Tullius. Today we have episode 131. The chapters at the end of the book, at the end of the episode, are going to be from Beyond Brightside. We got chapters 6 and 7 today. Hopefully you guys enjoying that story. A little bit of brutality to end your day. But first, we have a very special guest all the way from Germany, Remington Splettstoesser. Sorry if I messed up your name. Remington, so good to have you on here, man.
Yeah, it's weird to be on the other end of this. I've never been a guest on a podcast before, so it's like, wait, oh, he's doing the intro now, like, okay, cool. It's cool. Yeah, we'll do it the other way around this time. It's gonna be hard for me to like hold back from doing my own hosting thing, It's yeah.
Hopefully this is a nice change for you. I like both. I love finding out about people, but then again, I'm a narcissist. I love talking about myself. So there's a little bit of both. But we had an awesome conversation. I think it was I was on your podcast, Deeper Energy, episode 22 or so. But we just really hit it off, and we had a lot of things in common, a lot of personality things, a lot of the same kind of issues, we were both drawn to the same kind of ways to heal ourselves and to deal with problems or whatever. But the reason I contacted you in the first place, and then I saw your podcast, I saw that it was in Germany. Have a huge interest in Germany, and that you are an American that moved there with your family. So I would love to hear when that took place, why it took place, and what your experience has been. And I'll have some more questions, but yeah, when did this happen and why did you do it?
Yeah. It's so funny too, because this story is something that I've told to so many German people that I actually have to like think about it, how to say it in English, my wife, now we met in high school, back in 2000. Oh gosh, 2000. Yeah, she was 6. We were 16, and there was no romantic thing. Like I tried, like I had a girlfriend and stuff, and I tried to hit on her, and she totally rejected me, and that stuck with me for some reason. She was really good friends with my sister,
Okay.
and so my sister and her just they were doing their thing, and I kind of always tried to pawn off the girls from the girlfriends of my sister. And the thing is, for Franzi is her name, she kind of had bad luck. Like when she got to when she got to California where I lived, it was kind of like how do you say that? I guess it was just like a luck of the draw, like what family she would get when she shows up as a exchange student. And so she had one of our teachers at our high school was one of these people that would have all these exchange students, like one at a time, come. And Franzi wasn't, unbeknownst to her, she shows up and she's like living in her garage. She had converted the garage to like a living quarters. And I know where she lives. She actually, coincidentally, we found this out like 5 years later, that she was living right next to my aunt and uncle in like this mountain village that's close. It gets cold up there in the wintertime and stuff, and she's like living in the garage. Anyway, so now I kind of figured out, I realized why she ended up spending so much time at our house, and she was such, that she spent the night lots. And anyway, it ended up that gosh, like in 2006, I was living in Vegas and she came out, and I kind of I knew like this was my chance to get together with her. And so it was really just a love story, like we ended up falling in love, and she was ready to move out to the States, and I was good to go. I was like, let's do this. She's like, yeah, but I'm not going to move to Las Vegas. So I had to like pack all my shit and go back to, I ended up going to San Francisco, and she went back to Germany and packed up her stuff, and then came out, and we met in San Francisco like 3 months later. And on her flight out there, she was sitting next to like an HR representative from I think Hewlett Packard, and he was like, sorry, but all the job visas for, she had already graduated college, she was ready to go, like tourismos, I say it in German, see, tourism and event management is what she studied. And so she was like ready to get a job. And yeah, the guy was like, no, it's not going to happen. 40,000 visas are gone. And it was in February at the beginning of the year. So they were already out. So she basically got off the plane. It's like, I have to go back to Germany. And I was like, I was good to go. I was like, well, I signed a lease for 3 months. So, she was like ready to go on the plane and just like leave me in this apartment. And I was like, no, you got to stay here with me for 3 months. I made it like, and it wasn't in San Francisco. It was like oh God, it was like in San Bruno, across the street from the airport. Like we had to watch movies on subtitles and stuff. It was just, it was
Wow.
crazy. But we ended up, yeah, like we ended up just then I did the same thing. I packed all my stuff, which was like such a cool thing to do, right? Like when I look back, like at the age of like 25, packing all of your stuff, reducing all of your belongings down to like 3 bags. And I sold my guitar, which was really cute because when I ended up showing up to Germany, my future father-in-law was like totally in. He's a super awesome like finger style guitarist,
Oh,
and
that's cool.
he he brought me a guitar to the airport. He's like, no man should ever sell his guitar, even for love. So he like gave me like one of his. He had an extra guitar when he
Wow.
really showed up to the. Yeah, so I ended up getting really lucky in that sense. Like I have this, but you asked me like why did I move to Germany? The simple answer, that's like a real long answer, right? The simple answer is I fell in love with the German girl, and I was
Mm.
open. I was like good to go. I didn't really care about like where. I just wanted to like explore a little bit, and Germany was a good excuse. And this woman that I'd kind of been following around for just on and off for 3 or 4 years, I finally had a chance to hook it up. So yeah, I ended up in Germany. I couldn't speak any German, like nothing. Um, and her father gave me a job working at his pharmacy. So I was able to kind of like, work in the background and then start to learn German. And that was, yeah, around 2006. Gosh, that was a really long answer. See,
Wow,
that's the
that
thing.
that well, that's a dude, that's also a huge decision, especially at that age. Had you been to other countries? Had you traveled much? And did you have like a job that you cared about? What were you doing at the time?
Yeah, like the job itself was just I was just a server at the chain PF Chang's. I was a
Okay.
Towley. I don't know if you watch any South Park, but Towley, I can relate to Towley. He was my
Yeah.
man. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we're both, we know what's up there. So yeah,
Yep.
like I was definitely a PF Chang's lifer on its way, especially in Las Vegas. Like that was the
Mhm.
pinnacle of PF Chang's was working at I think it was Planet Hollywood. So
Okay.
I mean, it was like that lifestyle, I couldn't really offer my wife anything like I say my wife, but like my girlfriend back in the day, Franzi, when she came out, it was like I got to keep working at the restaurant to pay rent. So you got to either going to get a job in marketing or do whatever. But I got to. This is my, and that was the difference with her family and her setup here in Germany is that her dad owned his own company. And in Germany, the pharmacies are sole proprietorships.
Okay.
So it's like a lawyer. It's like based on a person. So he ran
Mm.
his own business. He had like 20 employees, and so that financial basis allowed me to like just show up here with nothing and still have something, like still do something, which he ended up becoming my mentor. And fast forward to today, my wife runs the pharmacy now, and I'm in the background doing, besides the podcast, which uh, is obviously, as you know, podcasts have their own style of. I mean, it's not really a lucrative thing unless
Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean.
Well, and that's what we'll get into that too, why you're doing it and what you get out of it. Because yeah, it is a lot of work, and especially starting out, there's no no money and or very very little. So we'll get into that. Now, what part of Germany are you in? Um, how long did it take you to get okay with the language and start to understand it? And
Yeah.
well, yeah, let's hit that.
Yeah, for sure. Like I'm close to the Baltic Sea, so like east northern Germany. I'm in the actual like the old DDR. So I'm living in it was a total time trip for me. Like I was never a history buff. For the Americans that are out there are history buffs, they know what's up. But like my family, like my uncle was so he's like he was his reaction was like my reaction would have been. He's like, I know you're somewhere in Europe. Like that's close enough for me, like And so, yeah, the DDR there, or the GDR, the German Democratic Republic, was like a total new thing that was such a learning curve. But my father-in-law like showed me all that, taught me all about it, and it's a totally interesting story. And there's still remnants of it today in the village that we live in. It was bombed. I mean, Hitler actually ended up spending some of his time when he was injured in the hospital that's in this village that I live in,
Oh wow.
which no German wants to talk about. Like I think it's cool. Like obviously he wasn't the great guy, but it's still part of the history. And the fact that he
Right.
might have started part of Mein Kampf when he was in this hospital stay in this hospital is kind of like, well, that's just a part of history we don't want to like talk about. But I mean, it is what it is, right? Anyway, and German itself, like the language itself, I totally underestimated that. Like I do a lot of things. Underestimated that it would take me 18 months to really. I mean, honestly, it's not ever going to be like without an accent. Even these days, like everyone pinpoints me. They're instantly like, okay, where are you from? But at the beginning, it was like hand and feet, talking with my hands and feet. And I'm a very communicative guy. So that was a whole new level for me to like, wait a minute, now you're like tying my hands behind my back and I'm at a party trying to be social. And it was totally a growth process for me. Like, I think if I look back, it was probably like when I actually literally like became a man. It
Mhm.
took me that long. Some people can do it at a younger age. It took me until about 25 until getting out here, being thrown in the cold water and being forced to like learn a new language. And then also like you can't, how can I put this in a way? You can't do it like half-ass. Like I you can't like, it's weird to say, but like I kind of didn't like German because you like I would listen to stuff and I'd be like couldn't understand it, so it just got me upset, and I would just
Mhm.
kind of I would just fight it. There would be something deep down, and I didn't it didn't like until I remember there's one night it was like this is a good story. Like there was one night I've been here for 6 months. And I was like, what's going on? This is not gonna happen. Like I had totally hit that point where it's like, screw this, I'm going back home with my tail between my legs. Like that was the moment.
Mhm.
And Franzi and I we were out partying as always, like, at that age we were just doing our thing, and it was a social thing, and she's a very social person, and she's hanging out with like her ex-boyfriend from like the village, and they're all speaking German. I'm like, yeah, great, they're gonna hook up. You always just go straight into like the worst thing. Everyone's always talking about you and like all that kind of stuff. And so I was totally down on myself, and we got back to the apartment, and I was like, that's it. Like, I don't know. And she looked at me, she's like, is this it? Like, she's like, she was on that reality too. She's like, this is not going to happen. Like, and I remember saying, really, I don't know, it was weird, but at that moment I was like, I was like, fuck it, no, I'm doing this. Like I literally said that to her, and she's like, yeah, right, whatever. But when I said that, it was like somehow then it like everything got easier after that. It's so obvious now when I say it, but back then it was really me just saying fuck it. It's like those two words, and they
Mhm.
kept on helping me every time when things turned into being hard. I was like, it's cool, like it's interesting. Or there's like this positive growth mindset, I would say,
Mhm.
to German. And so then like that was 14 years ago. It's
Wow.
crazy to
Uh,
tell that story like that. Yeah.
and I was gonna say that has to be because I know even just for this little trip, um, I know pretty much everyone's gonna be speaking English, especially in the hall that I'm in, and you know, but I understand I'm going to be going with like a first grade level understanding of German, probably understand even less. And so you lose all of your humor, you lose your intelligence, and you come across as, you're not witty at all when you're trying to speak someone else's language and you don't have a grasp on it. So I've had to just be like, you know what, I'm okay with that. Like, uh, but I really had to pick up my learning because I realized like I'm never going to get this if I just keep doing like 5 minutes a day. And definitely had to change my mindset about it too. Like, okay, it's not hard, it's interesting. Um, and that I
Yeah.
think that's helped me a little bit too. So, but I realize it's going
Yeah.
to take forever.
Well, and I think the when I look at my kids now, it's like, well, they have it so good, right? Like they don't even know. Like Tristan will switch back and forth between English and German in the same sentence. Like you don't even, and
That's awesome.
it's like, yeah, but the older we get, right, the more we're like, like I noticed because I learned German at such a late age. I'm not as emotional in German. Like I'm
Mm,
just not like that. Like I used to be a guy that would like. I mean, I still am that guy, but like, I don't know. It's hard to say, but like, I think sometimes like I don't. I would cry and watch a movie. If there was a movie that was kind of got me, I'd get teary eyed and it would hit me hard. And it's, I feel like since I've learned German, like I lost like a little edge of that, because like I think in German and um it's almost sad to say it out loud that like I think I lost a little of I have to it takes me more to tap into that emotion because think about all the things you learned, all the things from like the age of 0 to 26, or 25, like all the relations and all the things that are happening in your brain, and then I mean you've gone through so many things with your head injury. Like what it's like to go through the reprogramming of your brain, right? That's a really actually interesting topic, and how and where language lives, and these I know all these pathways that are being created, and it seems like I mean I'm definitely positive that like if I'm supposed to give you like an emotional speech, I better do it in English. It's not like in German it's going to fall flat. It's not going to hit those points that you want it to hit. Yeah.
Now, can a German speaker, like someone a native, can they have a very emotional speech in German, or is it the language itself that kind of diffuses it, maybe, or deflates emotion because of so many words, or anything like that? Do you think,
Yeah.
or you think it's just the change?
That's an interesting question. Like when I've watched like I follow some like comedians, for example. Like you and I both like
Mhm,
Joe Rogan. So
mhm,
like when I watch like and Joe Rogan has actually opened me up to comedy because he talks about it so much on his podcast. I like never thought of comedy the way I did before he would talk about it with his guests and stuff. And then he has like comic comedians on and they talk shop kind of, and you're like, you kind of feel like, oh, I didn't realize it was such a, this type is an art.
mhm,
And so I try and look at like I try and sometimes I've tried it multiple times. Of like, okay, I'm gonna find like a German comedian and be like, get into this guy. And it's just different. I don't know how to say it, but I don't know if it's because I'm American. But like even my wife, like she'll watch she would rather watch English comedy with me on Netflix than watch like German comedy. So
mhm,
she's full on German. So you're right. I mean, it's definitely the culture is just it's culture and language are just they're so intertwined that the best comedian that I ever watched in German was like a dog comedian. He talked about like dogs and their owners, and that shit was funny. It was hilarious, but that was about it. Like like this real introspective, like intelligent kind of comedy where you follow it and it's like a story. I've
mhm,
yet to find that in a German comedian, but I wonder if it's just because America is America, right? Like America, you can't. It's the culture of the United States, the way that it's just created such a that's why obviously the last couple of years been a rough patch, but that's why it's so special because there's so much creativity and the type of thinking is more open, right? It's
mhm.
everything just Germans are I can't say I hate this. People do this with me as an American, but Germans they have a harder time opening up and expressing themselves just in general. It feels like to me, like I mean I know this because like I get that card, I get the free card, the free pass of being that guy that's open because I'm American, and so everyone's like, oh, he's American, that's why he talks so much and blah blah blah. But I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe I don't know. And I hate when people put me like because I'm like the one American in a radius of like I don't know 50 or there's a couple of us around here, but there's not very many of us. So I get the card like, oh, that's how all Americans are, which is also obviously I'm not the representative for 330 million people. That's
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. What were some of the, and I don't like using stereotypes either, but I've been watching a lot of like YouTube videos on what not to do in Germany, how people are,
ah
how they are into rules. They don't like the loud noise so much, or in restaurants. Um, what are there some other big takeaways? Pros and like my co-author was mentioning that like with fast food, he's like most Germans look at fast food like a last resort instead of here in America where it's the first thing you might go to and a convenient. So, are there any
Yeah.
things that you've noticed? Pros and cons.
Well, what were some of the things on those videos? Do you remember
Um,
like
like one was like in restaurants not to be like overly loud. One was just about following rules in general, like don't cross the street unless there's a crosswalk. Don't go on the bike path. Don't but just like stick to rules. And
that's
yeah,
the great.
those are some of the ones that I really took away. But it from seeing so
Yeah.
much, it seemed like the rules was kind of a big thing.
Right. Totally. Let's if I have to kind of bring myself back to like, because I kind of turned it a little German. Like my whenever I travel back to the States, Fonzie's like, "You're so German now," because like
Really.
people are so nice in the States and stuff, and I'm always just like, "Why is everyone so fucking nice?" And she's like, "You used to be that way too. You remember? You used to be a nice person." So I think the but the thing is like the small difference, just a real easy answer to that would be like, don't be disappointed when you go to like a restaurant and the server doesn't care about you at all. Like it's
Mhm.
like that was obviously because I came from that industry too. Then I was like, whoa, they don't even care at all. Like you're lucky that you have like food on the table, like because
Wow.
it's just a different thing, and you just and I'm like, why would they even pick that job? And my wife's like, they probably didn't pick that job, like it's not their favorite thing to do, And I'm like,
Mhm.
well, but if you're doing it, you're gonna do it anyway. Like she's like, no, they're just miserable and they complain about it and they don't change. Like that's just what it is. And I'm like, well, I guess there's a lot of people have that same trait, but it's
Yeah.
and then the other thing is um friendships. Like this is a big deal, but like for me, the first thing I noticed when I first got to Germany, I was accepted instantly into the core circle of my girlfriend's friends, which I'm very thankful for. And her best friends, like it's a couple, they are my best friends now, like even
Mhm.
13, 14 years later. But it took a good 2 years for that friendship to actually turn into a real friendship. So that was something, especially I don't know if in California it's even more superfluous, but and in Vegas, obviously that was just a rotation of people. You never really had like your friend group changed. Um, and I've got like two good friends back from high school that one I just finally called the other day. Um, but I know that if I showed up there the next day, like we would be right back on that same page.
Mhm.
But, but the thing is, like, especially here in the GDR, where the kids grew up uh, with the family values very high. Like the family was first.
Mhm.
Capitalism came later, where it was like important to make money. That didn't make any difference to these, and so they have these types of friendships that are so deep and so real that if you want to be part of that, like you gotta show up and be there when people need you. You have to be a real friend, which
Mhm.
like when I because I would show up, and you know how it is, like you meet someone and it's like you have a great time at a restaurant or a bar or something, and they're like, oh yeah, and Americans are like that, oh, you're my best buddy and that, and then you meet them the next day and they'd be like, oh, what was your name again? It's
Yeah.
like that super fake shit.
Mhm.
Um, but when you're constantly surrounded by it, becomes like a normal thing, kind of like you don't
Mhm.
really take it as an offense or anything. It's like, oh yeah, it's cool, and I noticed that um, instantly, like here, people don't like give you that fakeness, but it
Mhm.
seems rude at first. Like if you're not used to it, you're like, they're being rude, and it's not. It's not that they're being rude; they're just being real. And
Mhm.
I took it personal a lot of times because I kind of was like, "Where's that feedback? Why isn't that person smiling at me?" It's like because they don't want to smile at you. They don't even know you. And just I don't know. It seeps into every little interaction. Um,
Yeah. I
so
no,
I don't know. Yeah,
I was gonna say that's super helpful for me too because I am the kind of guy now, and especially when I'm in like author mode, I want to talk to people. I want to greet people. I want to be super friendly. So I appreciate that. I want to spark up conversations with everyone. So that
yeah.
that's a good little warning. Uh,
Mm.
now, would you? would you guys ever consider moving back to United States? Is there any desire, or do you think Germany is your permanent home?
I have a desire for sure. Um, there's always a desire, especially with that whole thing like following the pandemic, and it's definitely more chill here than it is in California, especially because we live in like a very sparsely populated area. But there
Mm,
was like when it first hit the fan, like I was like, oh, I'm looking, and obviously like I follow Joe Rogan. I'm like, oh, I've been to Austin, Texas. Like that's a good place to be.
mm.
And obviously now I'm sure the prices have gone like 200% through the roof to like move there. I forgot where you're in California, right?
I'm in
Yeah,
California.
you're like Whittier, or where were you
Yeah,
at?
yeah, I'm in Whittier, which is like
Yeah.
LA, not right on the border of LA and Orange County. But my brother and sister are both in Austin. My brother was there a couple years ago.
Yeah.
My sister just moved there. Um, they wanted to get out of California. Um, I just don't even care, man. I'm like, you know what, whatever. I was like, all I care about is my family, my house. I was like, if everything's cool here, then we're good. So, um,
Yeah.
but I do want to. I want to travel. I want to see. I had wanted to do this trip with my whole family. Last year we were supposed to go around Germany and do like a 2 week trip, but so maybe
Mhm.
next year. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know if I would ever want to leave here completely. But we'll see. We'll see because it
Yeah.
does sound like a lot of the other thing with all this German stuff is it made me understand my grandfather a lot better because my
Yeah.
grandfather is German. Well, was German, and again, that whole side of the family, like not showing a lot of emotion, not showing a lot of love, not never saying the words "I love you," and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I'm
Yeah.
not saying all Germans are like that, but
Yes, they it's a safe bet. Like if you had to if you had to bet on one side, I'd say less people get the "I love you." Like I remember hugging my father-in-law the first time when I showed it. There's a like my father-in-law, he would like I remember coming downstairs like the night after I got here, or the next morning, like Franzi and she picked me up from the airport, and then we showed up at her parents' house, and then we went upstairs and went to bed. It was like super late. And so I get up in the morning and I walk downstairs without a shirt on, just like shorts, and I'm like, cool, this is awesome. I'm gonna hang out with the family. My father-in-law sitting there with a shirt like I have on, like a dress shirt and a fucking sweater at the breakfast table. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go put something on. So I turn around and I go upstairs, and I put like some wrinkly ass shirt on, and he's like, "It's okay, Remington." I'm like, "Oh shit." He was cool about it, and but he laughed about it too. But thank God, because imagine if he would have been like,
yeah,
"What was that?" You know what I mean? But he had to kind of like me because his daughter was in love with me, so I kind of got that luckiness there.
yeah,
But I remember hugging him like after being there for a week at their house when he first showed up. I was really thankful for that. I was like, wow, that's so cool. He just opened up my. So I was just like, all right, I'll see you. We'll see you. When we get next time. And he was like, I had to like hug him around his arms. He was like, what the fuck? He's hugging me now. So yeah, and he's like a really loose guy. Like it's just not like Franzi said that to me. So I know he loves me. But it's not like you don't get that like we are with our kids, and I love how Franzi has opened up over the years. Like when we first met, like that was like the boot camp that I had to put her through. I was like, we talk about our emotions, like she was the dude in the relationship. She was just like, just talking all the time. I'm like, I want to talk about my feelings, and let's explore this. And she'd just be like, Jesus Christ, this guy talks too much. So I don't know. I don't know. It's probably a mix of German and just the fact that I'm just I'm one of these people that just I apparently just has to, you know, as you can tell in this conversation, always
Can
go.
so besides your wife, have you made a difference, do you think, with your father? Because I realized, like, with my dad, I think we've helped him say "I love you." We've helped him, open up more. Do you see your influence on others?
It's an interesting question too. Like how many of us do really know how much influence we have? It's the same thing with the podcast too. How many people really, even if you hit one person with it, but with directly with my father-in-law, we have phases. Like uh, it's like ever since he retired, it's been, I think, a little tricky for him because it was like it's his baby. We took over his pharmacy, and so that's a whole dynamic where it's like, okay, wait a minute, dude worked 25 years to like work on this, and now the happy American just comes in here, and you know, um, the structure of the pharmacy is not like I'm going to change it into something that it's not, that's not. But so there's that. Like, there's definitely that dynamic that probably doesn't necessarily help the relationship. Um, but my father-in-law and I got lucky that he plays guitar way better than I ever will ever play in my entire life. But at least we have that hobby together. And then also he likes to ski. He's a big skier. One of my all-time dreams was to go to Austria and ski in the Alps, like a snowboard or whatever. I don't care. Put skis on me. How main thing I'm there. And he's like kept this tradition in his family like I think out of the last 14 years we've been down there like 8 times, and we're going again this year. And he would invite us, and super nice hotel and everything. So I that's like such a gift we also go out on the mountain and we're together. Like we're out there and we just sit on, and just bullshit. And
Mhm.
so that's like a time I definitely treasure that. I'll always be able to look back at that, and this year, and he's getting up there, so it's like he wants to keep going, and as long as he can keep going. So I'm
Mhm.
always going to give him that. Like even if I'll always make a week, even if it's just me and him going and not the whole family. Like we've done that 3 or 4 times where like the whole family was like, I don't want to go on the whole ski vacation because we just love it so much, and I'll just go with him. So I think that would have happened either way. Like, probably would have dragged me along, or he would just go by himself. Um,
Mhm.
that's like it's interesting though. Like if you have an influence with that, you know, I don't know. I don't think so as much as that. I think it's more just we live it in our family, and we live it with the kids, and the kids they want it, right? They pull it from their grandparents because we show them what it's like, and so I think the kids are even more like exponentially. They're like they
Yeah.
make the grandparents, make them love them. I mean, they
Yeah.
of course they love them, but yeah,
Yeah. Show it even more. No, that's super cool.
yeah,
Um, Okay, now let's switch focus. Let's go into the podcast. And I believe it was a different name before too. So I want to hear that why you did change
yeah.
the name, if the name changed, and why you started it, what you've gotten out of it.
Yeah, the podcast. Gosh, this has been a thing. Like, and I'm at a crossroads right now, actually, with that. So, but the beginning, I think again, Joe Rogan. Like, I would listen to it. I actually, when I first got to Germany, podcast kind of kept my. They always kept my lifeline to the states, like to with English speaking. And I used to listen to Kevin Rose and Alex Albrecht on this podcast. What was it called back in the day? They were like kind of two nerds with their laptops open, and they would just talk shit about like nerdy stuff, computer stuff, and play video games. And I forgot what it was called. Anyway, like and I eventually, like later, I think I only found Joe Rogan like 2 or 3 years ago. But uh I, then the technology got kind of the point where it was like, okay, you could set up a camera and set up a thing, but even that was like, oh, I mean, isn't it a lot more work than you think at the beginning that you're gonna like get a microphone and get headphones and like connect it to your computer? Like I thought, like, a year and a half ago when I started, that I would just take the HDMI cable from my camera and put it into my laptop. And the setup, I changed the setup today because I'm sitting at my desk. And again today, like I had to install 3 different softwares just
Oh
so
wow.
that like it gets so that the driver like loads to the camera. I'm thinking like, you know, so anyway, like that whole technical side of it was I'm down for that. Like I'm a tech guy, so I was into that. Yeah, and then I originally, I think I called it the Real Remington Show,
Hmm.
and then I called it the Real Remington Podcast because I was like, okay, this isn't a show. I'm too egotistical to call it a show or something. And then I did change it to Deeper Energy because of the conversations that I was having through this Podmatch platform, because
Hmm.
I had put in like philosophy and martial arts, and I'm really glad I put martial arts in there because I think otherwise we wouldn't have found each other.
All right.
Um, and I guess there was like a touch to like kind of this whole touch on like trying to figure out things, right? It's just it came at a weird time too because I had actually done started the podcast before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit. So it was kind of like, oh wow, introspectiveness and figuring out what's new. All I think everybody's been doing that, and I've just kind of been
Mhm.
doing it live on these podcasts with people, but I haven't. That one mistake I made for sure in this podcast is that I never had a niche. Like I never had like a specific topic. I was just doing like the Joe Rogan format, which works for him because he's Joe
Oh, yeah.
Rogan, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and that format doesn't work for anybody else probably, or or it works for famous people that can have other famous people on. So that's enough draw.
Mhm.
But um the interesting thing, like when I look at your podcast, it's like it's cool. You like it has to exactly to do like you said at the beginning. You at the end you talk about your book, you have chapters, you pull it out there, so your listeners are people that read your book, and it's very focused on this one thing, and it's nice because that's where I go when I want that fix.
Mhm.
And that's one thing I never did with my podcast, and I think that's yeah, I'd never thought I had to. I was like, it doesn't. I didn't want to. I was like, I just want to have these conversations. But at the other end of it, when you talk to everybody, you talk to nobody.
Mhm.
You know. And so I finally learned that, and so now I'm kind of at this crossroads with it. I'm like, I just let it be. It is what it is. I had a good time. I met you. I met that's definitely like the best side effect of podcasting is meeting people, right? And then also interesting people that are authors and that have done or doctors and done different things. And as much as it was interesting to me, I was like kind of thinking it would be interesting for people to listen to. But maybe it is too. Maybe you just have to, like I said, you have to niche down enough to where you find your audience. And that's a trick that I never really paid attention to. I don't know why, but now I got it on my radar. So we'll see.
Yeah, and that's one of the big problems I've had too. Because even though I do share a story or a chapter or whatever else, like the episodes, sometimes it's just me talking. I was like, and that's boring. Who wants that? And then different types of guests. So yeah, right now, and I generally will like all of my stuff for the next while is probably going to be all brain stuff, or brain or Germany stuff, and then it's whatever I'm interested in, which is not a good technique, but I'm really doing this. I think I do it for myself more than anything because I do enjoy meeting other people, And
Yeah.
even on the times when I'm talking just by myself, it's kind of nice just to wrap up my week. I'm like, oh yeah, I did this, and this, and I don't know. It's helpful. It doesn't take a lot of time, and if people listen to it, I was like, that's awesome. Um, I
Yeah.
do want, I do want to get better at it, and continue it, and I get so much more from having guests on and having cool conversations. Um,
Mm.
Now, one of the things we really connected with, and this goes into the deeper energy, was I think we were talking about breathing. We were talking about all these different ways to handle stress or whatever else. Um,
Yeah.
let's go into why that's important to you. What are you most interested in? Is it health and overall, like what's your biggest interest, and what are you getting out of the podcast?
That's the thing about it, right? Like it's kind of like if I look back and now I'm trying to curate it a little bit in my mind too, like what is the why? Like when I said I was gonna stop, like this has been a process. I said it to my wife like about I don't know, probably a month or two ago. I was like, that's it, I'm done, like this is and I felt like so sad. I was like, oh, but that's not cool. If I feel like if I have like if I'm missing it, then it must be important to me. And I came up initially I came up with that answer that you just said. That was like, this is like for me, like this is I get something out of this. I get at something out of these conversations. And this is the first time I've talked like had a second conversation with somebody. And you're right, it's so much better, right? Because we already have a base to work on. We can kind of go deeper down and it becomes more interesting. And I've out of like maybe the 40 episodes that I did, um, I could probably say like 10 of those I could probably do the same thing, go back and like jump back into that person again. And so
Mhm.
there's so much there. But how do you curate it to the point where it's something that's I guess you would say it's really truly helpful. Like
Mhm.
and what is it that what yeah, like you asked, like what is it that's inside of me that wants to get out, and why, and I found like podcasting was one way, but I'm sure there's multiple other ways to to find my art and my calling. It really is. It sounds kind of esoteric, like, oh, my calling, and
No.
like when the pandemic hit, for example, like you said, with the breathing and being healthy and all of these things, like that's totally a new thing. Um, that kind of was forced upon me for an external situation. Like I found Wim Hof. Thank God I found Wim Hof. I use his breathing technique every single day. Like unless like I'm on vacation or I'm doing something, like I would say at least 5 days in a 7 day period, I'm doing the breathing, and I'm doing it to the point where I'm kind of getting psychedelic with it now. Like it's crazy. It's crazy. Like I'm like, oh, this is like I just almost died. Basically, is what I feel like. Last night I got into the ice bath after the sauna.
Oh
Like,
wow.
yeah, it was just I was like, oh, this is what it's like to be alive. Like there's no like faking it there. You know, like you feel your body, like your heart's like, uh, what are we doing? Like, I was like kind of doing the thing. I could feel my whole. I was like, I better get out right now, otherwise I'm not going to be able. Like so. I found that. So like, can I share that with you, or share that? Can I put that into something that's useful for somebody? Obviously, Wim Hof, like that's the guy.
Mhm.
But Wim Hof is Wim Hof. Like, what's Remington got to offer? What part of that does that work? How does that? How can I use that in my everyday life to, yeah, to find out? Well, it's just being healthy. That's just like a health thing, right? Like the breathing is just a health thing. It resets your brain. I feel like it fights all like if you have like a little, even little sniffy nose, like a little like it feels. I feel like that. Like he fought off Ebola with that, right?
Yeah.
Like he yeah, he went into the this university Medicare thing or whatever, and he like they injected Ebola into him, and he fought it off with his breathing technique. So when I feel like I'm a little sick or something, and I do that breathing technique, I'm like, oh, I'm resetting my pH value, and this is something that needs to be shared. Like, why do we have to do all these other crazy things? You just learn how to breathe, you know.
Yeah, and they reproduced that study. I think he trained like 14 other people to do the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
with the breathing, they were able to beat it and not get sick. So yeah, it is amazing. And I kind of have that. I have that with my brain book where I felt like I'm like, who am I to even write this book? I'm just a dumb stoner or whatever. It's hard for me to even remember any of the shit I'm reading in these science books. But it's like, okay, there might be a lot of people that don't know about Wim Hof, and so maybe they'll hear about it in this book, and there's not a lot of people that maybe know about Dr. Mark Gordon. So even though in our mind, these people are super popular and whatever, it's like, no, this is just our way. We're helping spread this message, like, hey, there is, you could get help this way or this way, and here's a cool thing that helps me. And I think by doing that, I think the more people that have that conversation, someone that hears it from me, or maybe they would hear from you. If they don't hear from me, or someone, another one of the people, another person like us that is just spreading this message, like, hey, there are other alternatives. We can be healthier. We could be happier. This is how what a man could be like. Men could have these kinds of conversations. Men can share. Whatever it is. Because
Yeah.
I'm big on that too. Is like sharing vulnerabilities. I'll talk about anxiety. I'll talk about being suicidal. I don't care. Like, and so in our mind, maybe everyone's like that, but it's like, no, the truth is not everyone's like that. And a lot of people don't want to share. A lot of people don't even want to be on camera. A lot of people don't want their voices heard. So, and then it goes to it too. Like, okay, is this a waste of time? Is it whatever? I have that a lot with meditation. I could get that with breathing because it feels like you're doing nothing. But with the podcast, if we're getting the same benefits as like meditation or therapy or whatever else, is like, well, no, we're doing something productive. We're being we are being productive, we're being positive, and we're putting out something that's good and can help other people. So why stop it? So hopefully
Yeah.
you'll think.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. That's exactly it. Like it's and there's so much, like you said, there's it can go, it doesn't have to just be the breathing. Like meditate people, how, God, I'm amazed that sometimes it gets very esoteric very fast with the meditation thing. Like I'm like that too. That's why the breathing is so good, because it's kind of like it forces you just to be like,
Yeah.
because meditation itself, like I do the thing and I listen to it, and then my mind wanders, and it's like it. I think that happens to every single person, though, But it always just turns into this thing where it's like, okay, am I driving down the road or is the road coming towards me? I was trying to explain it to my son the other day because we were on a little road trip. And that was one of the things that Sam Harris had said in his, I think it was in his podcast or in his app or whatever. And it was like this, like you have to switch between the road coming at you and you driving through. And so the actual switch itself is this, it's kind of like jujitsu, kind of like when you push and pull and you have these moments where you kind of time things.
Hmm.
It's really like you can't really explain it any other way, but the more that you figure out that you're in between, the more that you're actually like in the moment somehow. And like that's it. That's like at that point you're like, okay, but I say it like like being in the moment. What is that? Like how many hours of the day are you in the future or in the past, and how many of seconds do you really just miss? And if you really pay attention to this moment, there's a million things happening.
Yeah.
So it's actually kind of crazy to like there's a depth to this moment that is we're not scratching on a lot of the time somehow. But
Hmm.
again it's like, okay, but what does that mean? Like, so well, where are you going with that, Remington? And it's like, well, I guess then I I'm just not taking it for granted that I'm like alive, you know. Um,
Yeah.
what was this name? Victor. I just bought his book today. Victor. Victor. He was in the. Go back to Germany. He was in the Nazi concentration camps. Frankel. Frankel. Victor
Oh, yeah.
Frankel.
Mhm.
Did we talk about him too last time? I don't
No,
remember.
no, I don't know
And
much about it. I know the name. That's it.
yeah, he had this story where he was just obviously he was in the concentration camp, so that's a story in itself. But he ended up being like a motivating point for the soldiers, even for the Nazi soldiers, like because he was stripped of everything and he still kept like a positive outlook on life, and he got himself through this concentration camp and came back and wrote a book about it. And so uh yeah, like it's all inside you. That was just so I remember listening to that story the first time. I think I listened to like a Tony Robbins video tape or something like that, and he talked about it, and he obviously put it more eloquently than me. And I wanted to catch on the book because it was something that just kind of popped back up, like w- you know when like just this thing, this luckiness to be alive, like we miss that. And we have to curate that feeling every day, and it has to be a habit to like be grateful that you just woke up in the morning. It sounds so preachy,
Hmm.
but or I mean, you've been through some shit, man, and see that helped you get your perspective. But what if someone's like just had like a perfect life their whole life, like nothing's ever gone wrong, and the first thing that happens to them, they're just crushed, right? And you look at it like that's nothing, man. What Nothing even happened to you. Like you just having a bad day. Like, you know, because you're living in a bubble. So there's
Hmm.
got to, I don't know.
But I'm always amazed though at just how much I let those moments pass and how how unpresent I am. Last night, early in the day, I was going to do a yin yoga, but yin yoga, man, it's like 5 6 minutes holding a pose, and it could be boring or whatever else. But I did it last night, like at 7:45. I went outside, and one of the first things he said was like, "You deserve this. Like enjoy it." And so just laying there and just breathing and looking at the sky and being present, I was like, this is awesome. Why do I have a hard time doing this? Like this is what I should be doing right now. This is the best use of my time instead of going inside and watching TV or occupying myself with my phone or whatever else. It's like I'm breathing, I'm letting my body relax. But it's amazing, that moment doesn't happen very often for me. That doesn't happen necessarily every day. And so I think, and that's why conversations like this are good because you're reminding me like, oh yeah, no, I do need to do that more. Like that is important. Like that helps me a lot. Just a reminder, like, okay, let's just ground ourselves and get present. So um
Yeah. And your kids, sorry, I bet your kids, they're always the first, like, I always notice they're the first ones to be like happy about you doing that. Like every time that I'm like in this good place where I'm like, okay, I'm in it. Like I see him out there on the trampoline. Like last night I saw him on the trampoline and my wife wasn't feeling good. She was like kind of like I think she had ate something weird. And she's like, oh God. So she sat on the couch and just folded laundry and watched TV, right? Like, I'm happy that she does that, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, the laundry would never. Um, but I was like, I kind of looked out and I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna go out there and just sit on the trampoline with them, and see what they're doing, And that turned into like 20 minutes of just like pure laughter, as opposed to like picking up your phone and searching for that same dopamine hit with Twitter or with Instagram. And so, it's like, of course, in retrospect, when you say that, but it's the actual, like, that moment, that realization, like, this is a choice I'm making. I'm making this choice to miss that that
Mhm.
that time with him for like a device that's really not going to give me what I really want. I mean, it may feel like it because it's programmed to do that to me, but
Mhm.
those kids are programmed to do the same thing, and they get something out of it too.
Yeah, and that
Sorry.
and no, that's perfect. And at the end of my session last night, it was funny because my son came out, and the first thing he did, he just cuddled up underneath me, and he just wanted
Yeah,
to lay there with me.
that's
Uh,
awesome.
and so yeah, it was like, okay, yeah, that was an awesome thing, and they get to see like, okay, yeah, we can take the time and we can appreciate things because yeah, it's so easy to not do that and get caught up in the day and stuff. Um,
What were you
well,
gonna say? I'm sorry, I just kind of went on that one.
it was probably that. It was probably. I think it was just about the kids. Oh, I was excited. My daughter, she's becoming a singer. She just did a little performance. She's 13.
Right on.
Um, my kids don't. They listen to me, but they think I'm just a weirdo. It's like the breathing and everything else. But
Yeah,
after,
they look at me too like that.
yeah, they're like, "What's wrong with Daddy? No one else's dads do this." Um, but my daughter gets out of her singing class. She's like, "Yeah, my teacher wants me to start doing this breathing technique." And where I was like, "Yes," I was like, "That's what I've been telling you." I was like, "It's
Oh,
gonna make you
because
a
of
better
singing.
athlete. It's gonna make you a better singer." Is like breathing is
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, so I try to encourage it with them, but I was like, it feels good that like, okay, now she's realizing like, okay, yeah, this is smart, this is good, this is gonna benefit me. I think that's what a lot of it is. Like, if you could convince someone like this is gonna improve their life, if this is gonna make their life a little bit better and help them, then they're probably gonna be more likely to check it out.
Don't they do that thing where you have to like Justin Timberlake does it, where you have to like keep it on your mouth, like you have to suck it in, and
Oh,
then breathe, like breathe through your nose and like keep the sucking on the.
oh, that might be next level stuff that I'm gonna
It's
have
like the
to.
circular breathing or whatever. I've heard
Yeah,
about
because
it. It's hard. Like I had a friend that we I remember sitting there. He had no. I think I was the stupid one that figured it out. They have to like put water in your mouth, and then you have to spit out the water while you're breathing in through your nose or something. That's like the first step. And so I remember like sitting in front of the sink trying to do that, and God, everyone was looking at me like I'm a weirdo. But because you have like it forces you not to suck it in, then like
mhm.
otherwise it goes up your nose. I don't know.
Yeah, but
Foolery.
it's crazy how much is involved, but and that's one of the cool things like with her, man, like to already know what she wants to do or like some kind of performing and um but I love that. Um with your podcast, is do you have on German guests? Do you speak in German at all on the podcast, or is it strictly English? How does that work?
At Yeah, at first I just mixed it all together, and then I did like the German version and the English version, and now I've called it eine Prise Qualität, which is like a salt, like is eine Prise is like when you put a little bit of salt on something, so it's like a little bit of quality, like a touch of quality or something, I guess if you and yeah, I had a couple guests on recently. So I changed that um, name again, and it's it's not as easy. Like Podmatch is so cool, and I didn't really explore Podmatch for German speaking, and I don't really know if you even could, honestly,
Mhm.
for German speaking guests. Have you found any Germans like in podcasting?
Yeah, go on Audrey, Audry.
Yeah, I've been on Audrey. Yeah,
Okay,
they have
that's where
more.
that's where
Yeah,
I found a couple different German podcasts. In
yeah,
fact, I should hook
yeah.
you up with my friends. I think you guys would have some good conversations too. So I'll send you some of their info because yeah, really cool guys, and that's I'm gonna be meeting them all on the trip. So you're the only one
Yeah.
that won't be with me. Sad.
What's that? I know.
I
I'm
said,
sorry,
you're,
buddy.
you're the
I
only one who
totally
won't.
would.
No,
I
dude,
know.
I
I would have.
I wouldn't drive that far to go to a book fair. I was like, I'm not
No,
that big
I
of
would do
a
it
nerd.
for you. I would totally do it just to come down and hang out with you because we definitely have a connection, Like I'm so lucky that we met and we'll definitely keep this going, man. Like whatever
Yeah,
form it is.
no, I think so. I was actually looking up jiu-jitsu schools over there.
Yeah.
I haven't trained in probably over a year. Like, or I've had a couple of training sessions. So I was like, I'm gonna write to them. I'm just gonna go down. I'm gonna train like the night before. I'm like, what an idiot! Like, I was like, just get beat up. I was like, it makes no sense. I was like, I gotta hold off. Have you been training? Have you been
Yeah.
practicing?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I can show you. Yeah.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
That
some
actually I got the
finger.
fresh one. I had one last week. I was like the whole side, like one of the white belts he clobbered me with his foot. Like
Uh,
he came across like with I was trying to pass his guard and he just reacted like way too hard and just like I looked like like a wife beater. I just had this huge, of course, or like a beaten from wife.
um,
Yeah.
is there much concern with COVID with your training? Like, are there regulations on how many people could be on the mat? Are you guys supposed to wear masks or anything, or is it not a big deal?
Uh, Yeah, well, I don't have to tell you what club I'm in, so
Oh,
I'm
okay,
kind
yeah,
of like
I'm in trouble.
Eddie Bravo had the best way, like the way he said it. He was just like, it's good to have clubs that aren't so in big cities and are a little bit hard to find. So
Yeah,
let's
and
put it
and
that way.
with and with tinted windows so no one can see inside.
Yeah, exactly. Like nobody's in there, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
And
okay.
yeah, but somehow in the last year attained my blue belt, so I must have been doing
Oh,
something.
congrats, dude. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's probably one of the biggest things, from going from white to blue, is
Oh
huge.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, and people start kicking my ass even more now. It's crazy. Like that now, it's like, oh, all the white belts they had like all of their ears perked up. Like, oh, he got a blue belt now, so now they're just going like way harder on me. And I'm like, I'm still the same guy, And my master, my trainer, he looked at me. He's like, no, you're a blue belt now. And I was like, oh, damn it. But
yeah.
it's cool because it keeps your game hard, like keeps your game up, and it raises your own like we created have we have like a flow. This was what he gave me the other day. He's like gave me like a homework assignment, like where I had to kind of like do like a flow, kind of be like, okay, now you're in guard. So when you're in guard, where do you want to go from there? Do you want to do a sweep? And then when you get into a sweep, are you going to take side position? And then it kind of loops around on itself. And then you're like, oh wow, I filled that out without really having to like think about it. So you just kind of visualize it, right? And then more often you do that, like the more often that you're in that position, you're like, okay, I'm just going to go from here to there, and it becomes this. So
Automatic.
yeah, jujitsu is it's seriously like I could totally do a podcast on jujitsu because I could talk about jujitsu like nonstop. That's like one of those things. It's just
That's cool. It makes me cry. It makes me cry because I have been out of it for so long. It's sad.
yeah.
My wife is the same way too. Like she became obsessed with it. She wants to get back in. We really are hoping to open one up down the street from us. We've been looking. We're just waiting for like the right opportunity. So that way
Yeah.
we can get back
Oh, you want
into
to
it.
open up your own studio?
Yeah, yeah. We have a
Right
black
on.
belt. Yeah, it's going to be 10th Planet Whittier. We had one before, but it closed a couple years ago. But now we have a black belt. He's awesome. He's looking. So as soon as we get the location, we'll open up just down the street.
Sweet.
So that way we can all start training. And yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
I remember when I first got into it, like, and you learned how to like do these rolls, where you like kind of do you're on your back or you do like these turtle rolls. And I've seen like these memes of these guys that's like how they go to work in the morning, like they roll on the road, like down the street, like you just roll right down into the mats and then just keep rolling.
Yeah. No, man. Yeah, jiu-jitsu is awesome. That's super cool. You got your blue. Dude, thank you so much for coming on here, man. I appreciate this. It's awesome talking. We'll talk again for sure soon, or definitely before I go to Frankfurt next year or Germany. Well, who knows what part. But I am planning on returning. So is where can people find you? Is it so Deeper Energy Podcast? Is there a website? Where should they go to check out the website or your social media?
The realremington.com. I still have everything up there. And it's the easiest place to find me. I listened to someone the other day. He's like, why is everyone promoting Linktree? Like just promote your own website, but I used to just do the Linktree thing. I put everything in the realremington.com. So yeah, man, it was really nice to talk to you too. And I wish you nice travels, and have a great time in Frankfurt. That's going to be a good time, man. I mean, good for you for doing that. I think it's so cool that you got your book in German too. That's
Yeah,
like,
I like it.
yeah.
I I was thinking about trying to do a reading in German over there, but I was like, nah, not yet, not yet. Yeah, no, dude, thank you so much. Go enjoy your family. Have an awesome night, and I will
Yeah.
talk to you later on.
All right, man. Thank you, Mark. Peace out, bro.
Night 2, Chapter 6. Waking up on Night 2 was a slow climb out of a syrupy haze. No memory of where I was or if anyone was around. The air was warm on my stomach, cold on my crotch. I hoped I was dreaming. Becky startled me when she said, "It's okay. We need to get you changed anyhow. It's not a big deal, Joe." Sarah agreed. "It's nothing." I wished the piss was my only problem, because right then it was the pain. A red-hot pressure radiating from my left shoulder. "Joe, look at us," Becky said. She was kneeling on a duffel bag piled in front of the barred window. "We look different, right? Come on, that's what we've got to do with you." I couldn't remember what she'd been wearing before, but now she had on a tight pair of jeans and a black Misfits t-shirt. The big change was her hair. Chopped short like a boy's, the brown, now blonde. Danny's number 78 blue and white Giants jersey swayed back and forth as he corralled a bug in the corner. He'd found a pencil and was doing that nervous thing, rubbing his thumb up and down the end of it. It's the same way he held that stick before plunging it in Wayne's cheek. I shake the image and concentrate on Danny, struggling to see what's different. He looks at me over his shoulder and points to his jet black hair. "Oh yeah, no hat," I said, keeping my thoughts to myself that with eyes too close and a smile too big, Danny's wasn't the kind of face you forget. Sarah sat on the corner of the bed dressed like she was going on a date, in gray pants and a dark blue blouse that matched her eyes. It was nice to see she'd gotten over the tiny scars on her arms, but I wondered what they'd make Becky think. Sarah's hair was how she usually had it in Brightside, pulled back in a ponytail, but I never imagined seeing a pink ribbon tied around it. Her attention was on the video playing on her phone, an earbud in one ear. I thought of sitting up, but said, "Nah, I can't do it. It hurts." Danny groaned as he got up and came to my side. "You'll be okay." My shoulder needed to be itched, but Danny grabbed my wrist and said, "Whoa, Joe." I sat up and shouted at least 5 fucks. All of them warned me to keep quiet. I lowered my voice. "God damn, it hurts. Not just my shoulder, my whole body." Sarah grimaced when she scooted over close enough to take hold of my arm in the sling. "You've been through a lot. We all have." Becky kept watch out the window. "Feels like I've had 12 jiu-jitsu matches yesterday. Just the second story fall alone." Danny nodded, the cut on his neck a reminder of how close he'd come. "We'll feel better." Sarah held a small syringe and found a vein in my forearm. "This might sting." The needle pierced my skin, a tiny prick compared to the throbbing pressure. I apologized and promised I'd be quiet. "It's fine," Sarah said. "I should have done it before, but we didn't want to wake you." "What time is it?" Becky said, "A little after 6. Can you see anything?" "Nothing, just this guy's backyard. 20 planes flying by every hour." "Looking for us?" Becky chuckled. "We're on a flight path to LAX. Everyone around here is." Sarah said, "But it's not just out there we need to worry about, Joe. It's everywhere." "What do you mean?" Sarah unplugged the earbuds and held her phone so I could watch some dorky white guy in a black suit and purple tie, a huge American flag behind him. Sarah saw I didn't get it. That's the White House, their last press briefing. Trying to sound sincere while his eyes read a script, the guy said, "Let me start by saying our hearts go out to all the families of the victims of yesterday's tragic terrorist act. The assault on and the escape from Brightside will not be tolerated. It only solidifies our nation's commitment to removing thought thieves and converting them from threats into assets." Some people clapped, but he held up his hand for silence. "Last night's attack was one of the worst acts of domestic terrorism in this great country's history. These rebels caused millions of dollars in damage and will cost us so much more for their recapture. But our president promises he will not spare a penny to see they face justice for taking the lives of 63 men and women sworn to watch over them." The screen switched to the smiling face of a boot in uniform, his name and rank below, along with his military experience and a list of family members he'd left behind. The screen stayed on for several seconds, then switched to a new face. Another boot, another former soldier. "In this heinous act of violence, these convicted telepaths poisoned their protectors, shot them point blank, and burned them alive. Those thought thieves still on the loose are America's top threat, and we will not rest until they are accounted for." The scene switched to the inside of a fancy office filled with important-looking people in suits. The reporter said, "Last night, just hours after the attack, the president showed his support by signing the Beyond Brightside Act. This act gives the Secure Solidarity System jurisdiction everywhere there's a thought thief. Citizens are reminded to respect their authority just as you would any other form of law enforcement. Their success is crucial for all our safety." Sarah paused the video and pointed to the gray-haired man in the military uniform standing beside the president. "General Voltaire. That creep came in on my interrogation, kept asking the same thing over and over. I've been in Brightside a month longer than Sarah, but had never seen him." "What was it?" Sarah hit play on the video and answered me. "What do you know of the underground?" The video went back to the slideshow of faces that'd never smile again, the suit still spouting his double talk. "Yesterday's cowardly terrorist attack underscores our need for vigilance as these thought thieves assault the homeland and its protectors. There has never been such a need for the careful vetting of all citizens, the call for honest, hard-working Americans like yourself to take a stand. Don't just comply, help. The American spirit will never be broken, and those that seek to divide us will only bring us closer." A list titled Approved Hashtags appeared on a black background. "Support your country by using the approved hashtags such as #NoThoughtThieves when you share this and all other relevant posts. And remember, any lead that results in the apprehension of a thought thief will receive $10,000. The email and hotline are at the bottom of your screen. Every entry will be taken seriously." I told Sarah, "That's enough." She put the phone away and said, "The border's been shut down. All family members of known thought thieves are being called in for questioning. I held up my good hand and sighed. Holy shit, louder than I'd meant to. I couldn't let myself think about just how fucked we were. We were safe for the moment. What's-his-face? How's he been?" "His name's Kevin," Sarah pointed out the window. "He left a little before 8. Becky said, "He looked dressed for work. Black slacks, white button-down." Sarah said, "I'm afraid there's another video you need to see. Can I change first?" Becky said, "I picked out your clothes and set them in the bathroom. Your dad said you should be an Army vet, especially with the injuries. Just act like they're old, from the war." The searing pain in my shoulder worsened when I moved, but I braced myself as Danny took hold of me. I wasn't ready when my left foot touched the ground, an angry ring of red around that ankle. Sarah said, "We've got to shave your head and darken your stubble." Danny helped me into the bathroom, then slid the slotted door closed behind him. Having only the one hand made things more difficult, but I was able to untie my sweats and let them fall to the floor. I peeled off my piss-soaked underwear and used the washcloth next to the stack of clothes. I scrubbed soap and water everywhere I could reach, but still felt dirty after washing. Sitting on the toilet was the only way to put on the clean underwear. I got dizzy and leaned back to clear my head. When I opened my eyes, the mirror scared the shit out of me. I was face to face with the most hated man in America. The last 2 days had been the roughest of my life, my face showing all the signs. The scraped-up cheek, dark circles under sunken eyes, cold and black from all they'd seen. Shaving off my hair would help, but like Danny, you see my face, you probably won't forget it. The sweatpants were my thin blue ones. I didn't know if it was Becky or Sarah, but one of them was thoughtful enough to slit the bottom of the left leg so I could get it on over my foot more easily. They also slit the left side of my t-shirt so I could slip it over the sling. Kevin's straight-edge razor lay next to the sink. I could have grabbed it and put an end to this whole mess, but I rationalized away the urge, telling myself I couldn't be selfish. It wasn't just me. I was responsible for bringing along all 3 of them. I had to be a good soldier and do my duty. Death would come, without my hand in it. Chapter 7. It was dark outside, but Becky was still at the window. The knife she'd gotten from Tommy, who'd died in the escape attempt, was folded beside her on the carpet. I'd wanted Danny to hold it since Becky had the gun, but Sarah shot down that idea before I could speak it. I was sitting on the bed, gripping the wooden handle of Wayne's knife, wishing some of that psychopath's energy would transfer to me. I don't know if it was the morphine, the gunshot, or maybe some of Wayne's madness, but my stomach was queasy, the room gently rolling. Closing my eyes usually made things better, but this time I had a slow-motion movie on loop. A bullet blasting through the side of Wayne's head, the snow turning red. "Shush," Sarah said with a pat on my good shoulder. Danny thought, "Screw Wayne." Sarah didn't chastise her brother, just sat a little closer and handed me the phone. Becky stayed where she was because she'd already seen the video. Danny, who was crouched in the corner, covered his ears because he'd watched it as well. The words on the bottom of the screen matched the voiceover. "Warning. This video contains graphic content that may offend and upset audiences. Viewer discretion is advised." The video cut to a beautiful shot of Brightside, the American flag slowly waving above the square, the pine trees and small towns so quaint and peaceful. "Yesterday at 5 p.m., one of the most heinous acts of terrorism in American history took place at the Thought Thief Rehabilitation Center located in Brightside, California." A photo of Sharon in her white pantsuit filled the screen. "This woman, Dr. Sharon Appleton, had been a trusted part of the Brightside community, acting as the resident psychiatrist. She abused this position of power and used it to mastermind the escape that culminated in the death of 63 agents and support personnel." The screen went to a shaky video of someone walking down a dirt embankment, stopping at the bloody body crumpled against the wooden fence. Hands flipped the body onto its back, dirt clinging to Sharon's face, her lifeless eyes staring at the sky. "Although she managed to evade detection for several hours, this criminal was apprehended in Southern California attempting to escape with her family." I shouted, "Where's the picture of her daughter? Show that!" The video went to a split screen. The top half showed an open road speeding by at night. Below it was the same road, but with a car racing slightly ahead and to the left, red and blue lights swirling on top. The reporter said, "These videos were taken from the dash cams of Secure Solidarity agents Gabriel Ortiz on the top and Michael Baylor on the bottom, who were in hot pursuit of the escaped terrorists." Several blocks ahead, a car darted out of a warehouse driveway and turned right, the brake lights flashing red and releasing. A station wagon followed, swerving as the boots closed in. Both civilian vehicles turned right at the light, the station wagon nearly flipping. The videos slowed to a quarter speed. Ortiz up top showed no warning, but just as he was passing the warehouse, Baylor's screen was filled with a moving truck zooming out of the driveway. A tremendous jolt as it plowed through Ortiz's car, knocking it into a vicious roll, spinning over and over. Baylor's car smashed into the back end of the truck, his windshield shattering, the car spinning until it slammed into the light post. Ortiz was upside down. A low whimper came from his car. From the other, a man I guessed was Baylor said,
"Oh, God, my legs! Agent down!"
Baylor's camera was useless, with the window all cracks. But from the top, we could see the truck's door open, the cab lighting up as two figures walked out. 10 feet from Ortiz's cam, I made out my dad, upside down, but determined, a semi-automatic in hand. Ortiz, who was whining like my dog Lily after she'd been shot, said,
"I can't move. Can't feel anything."
From out of the frame, but his voice loud enough to recognize, Dad said,
"Good. What are you doing?"
"You picked the wrong side," Dad said. 3 loud blasts rang out. Baylor shouted,
"Dispatch! Shots fired! Agent's down!"
No one else said a word, but 3 more blasts echoed. I'm guessing it was Sheriff Melvin. Dad's driver's license filled the screen, his Ohio address there for everyone to see. The reporter said,
"This cold-blooded killer is Hank Nolan, the outsider who helped mastermind the assault on Brightside and our freedom. For the death of these 2 men and the aiding of the terrorists, he is now America's number 2 most wanted criminal."
The photo changed to my Brightside mugshot, the angriest I've ever looked, roughed up, ringing in my ears, wishing I'd been killed along with Lily.
"The number 1 spot goes to his son, Joseph Nolan, the Brightsider responsible for setting the escape in motion. We don't have all the details yet, but here's what we know so far. Joseph Nolan, age 28, a liar, thief, and master manipulator, now a merciless murderer. Here he is in footage taken from yesterday's assault on Brightside."
I'd never noticed a camera on the flagpole, but that seemed like the only place the video could have come from. Me on the rooftop, firing the shotgun at the helicopter, watching it crash to the ground below. The faces of 3 boots filled the screen, a laundry list of humanizing facts listed below them.
"We take a moment to hail these heroes who will never see their loved ones again. We pray for these victims and their families, and we beg all of you honest citizens to help bring the Nolans and all remaining thought thieves to justice. If you love this country and what it stands for, share this video with the approved hashtags and report any suspicious activity to one of the contacts below."
Sarah stopped the video. Not a sound in the room. I had to. I didn't have a choice. Sarah's eyes were cold, staring right through me. "Did your dad?" "That was us in the station wagon," Becky reminded her. "He did that for us." Sarah thought that was bullshit, that he didn't have to murder them. Not trying to justify it, but only to end it, I said, "We've all made hard decisions." Sounding only seconds from losing it, Sarah said, "So what do we do now?" I knew we were fucked, but tried sounding like a soldier. "We stick to the story, hope we never have to use it." So Danny might not catch it, Sarah thought. "You know they'll never give us a chance. It'll be just like Sharon. Then we stay hidden." Sarah motioned at the locked door. "With this guy? We don't even know if he's coming back." Danny got out of his corner, no trace of his usual smile. "He's not coming back? Or what about a fire?" Sarah said, all panicky, not even acknowledging him. "We'd burn alive in here." "Stop it, Sarah," I said, a little meaner than I meant to. "There's not going to be a fire." Becky pointed at the ceiling, a square hatch I hadn't noticed. "We can get out if we need to. If Kevin does return, he won't let us stay." Sarah got off the bed and paced back and forth. "Jesus Christ, Joe, what did you do?" Becky said, "Even if they keep remaining Brightsiders alive, they'll just be slaves." "We don't know that," Sarah said, taking her time with each word to keep herself under control. "That's just speculation." I hadn't seen Danny upset with Sarah before, but his voice was raised, brow set for a debate. "It's not Joe's fault." "Yes, it is, Danny. Don't be dumb." "I am not dumb." Let's drop this, I said, pausing because Sarah's pacing was making me sick. If Kevin doesn't come back in an hour, we go through the attic. Sarah stopped beside Becky and pointed at me. You can't. So Sarah could stop trying to hide her thoughts, I said, yeah, I know. I'm fucking useless. I can do it, Becky said as she got up from the window and moved to the other side of the bed. I can get around and unlock the door. I saw the button he pushed. I wasn't looking to be anyone's leader, but someone had to. 1 hour. Agreed? They all said fine. Sarah sitting at the foot of the bed and staring at the wall. Becky walked around the bed and asked me if she could check out Wayne's knife. I'd forgotten I was even holding it. She took it and returned to the window. How about I keep this for a while? You have Tommy's. She nodded at my forearm, the thin line of red traveling down. The cut wasn't deep, but I didn't remember doing it. Yeah, you better. Danny offered to clean the cut, but I needed to close my eyes and didn't want to be bothered. It's not bad. I'll be fine. I hadn't thought I'd dozed off, but I jerked awake when Becky said, Headlights! Someone's here. The engine turned off, and Becky confirmed it was Kevin. He's got to have seen the videos, Sarah said, her panic back. He won't let us stay. I want the gun then. Sarah shook her head. You look like you're about to pass out. Good. Means I'm not a threat. I nodded at Becky. He'll think she still has it. The car door opened and shut. Heavy footsteps headed for the house, faster than I pictured Kevin moving. Danny stood and held out his hand. I could do it. Like it was a fact, Sarah said, No, you can't. Danny had been through enough. I gave him a big thumbs up and said, I know you could. Sarah couldn't even look at me as she said my name, her tone disappointed. What? That's real. Danny saved me with a pencil because I was a coward. I motioned for Becky to give me the gun. That's not happening again. Becky slipped Tommy's knife into her pocket and moved to the false door, Wayne's knife in one hand, the gun in her other. She put her ear to the door and said, He's inside. I got that she didn't want to upset Sarah, but I needed the gun. Hand it here, Becky. Sarah gave a slight nod and Becky brought it over. The gun was heavy, so I rested my hand alongside my thigh. I had Danny cover it with the sheet and stand by the door. Becky, wait in the bathroom. She stood between me and the false door, the innocent lamb I was leading to slaughter. You're not going to hurt him, are you? I'll be careful. He's letting us stay. I nodded to the bathroom. Go. Sarah backed into the far corner and sat down, concentrating on the phone. No one said a word for the next minute. Footsteps came down the hallway, but not fast like before. The lock disengaged, and the door pulled open. Kevin still had on slacks, his shirt untucked and wrinkled, red tie hanging loose. I couldn't see the gun by his side, but I heard his silent mantra, Stay calm, do not fire. Sarah said hi and gave a little wave. Kevin didn't acknowledge her, just glanced around the room. He nodded at the bathroom, and with renewed confidence said, She almost done? I'm only saying this once. The door muffled Becky a bit, but we all understood when she said, I can hear you just fine. All gruff and tough, he said, Get in here. Maybe she's shitting. We've only had protein bars to eat since you locked us in. I'm not. Kevin looked me in the eyes, but could only hold it a second. She's not. Well, it's still fucking rude. Kevin leveled the gun at the bathroom door, an additional 6 inches of metal added onto the barrel. His finger was on the trigger, not resting on the guard. I said, Wow, you don't even know how to put it on right. To me, he said, Get out, and started counting numbers to himself. He thought about all his bullets, how he had way more than he needed, how he had control of the situation. I laughed and said, No amount of bullets matter when the other guy is already aiming at your head. Kevin froze and thought, Oh, fuck. He considered calling my bluff. My arm was shaking, but I kept my voice calm when I told him, I wouldn't. You know I'll pull the trigger. Still facing the bathroom and sounding so sincere, the goddamn liar said, "I only want to talk. Remember, I'm helping you." "Yeah. What were you going to tell us? And why were you so worried about the silencer and whether or not it'll work?" He remained motionless, but was looking at me from the corner of his eye. "Stop it." I told him some more that had already slipped. Just bought it, rushed to put it on, afraid things might get ugly. That's not true, then why think it? Loud as he could, he thought, 7, 7, 7. Look, Kev, just like you, I only want to say things once. Put your gun on the table and step to your right. Kevin obeyed and faced the bed. "I wasn't going to hurt anyone." "I know. Just had to make sure." I told Danny to give the gun to Sarah and help our host into the far corner. Kevin sounded a sniffle away from crying. "What are you going to do?" "To you?" He nodded. "Not sure. Probably give you the same hospitality you gave us." Becky came out of the bathroom. "We have money," she said. "We'll pay you." Kevin shook his head. "I don't want your money. I saw the videos. I know who you are. Why the hell did you sign up to help others? Lock us up all day and come in here with your gun drawn? Why do that? You're no telepath." "My brother Andrew was. Andrew Westmore. He was up there with you." The others shook their heads. I said, "I don't think I knew any Andrews. He didn't last a week. Just long enough for one letter." Kevin paused. Thoughts of him and Andrews standing atop the Empire State Building, talking about what that fall would be like. He cleared his throat and said, "He wrote he was going skydiving one last time. Told me not to be sad. To remember he was smiling the whole way down."
This has been a presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.